Good evening and welcome to the first instalment of Össur webinars in 2020. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Peter Gill, one of the area sales managers in the UK, and this is Giles Leeming, who's going to go through the clinical education today for us. Welcome to everyone that's attended. So we've got people coming from Denmark, the Netherlands, Sweden and Norway. So good evening to you. And I think for the most part, it'll be mainly people from the UK. So good evening to you all as well. So I hope that you enjoyed tonight and that you find it useful. We've got a number of cameras working tonight. So the first camera we're going to go to is the first one where I'm going to start the presentation off and just do some introductions, and then I'll pass over to Giles. So as always, some of you may have attended a webinar before, some of you may not. So I'll go through the housekeeping just to ensure that you all know how to communicate with us. So first of all, if you do have any questions for us, just make sure that you use the chat function. Just click on that, whether you're on a telephone, a tablet or a laptop, it will allow you to communicate with us easily. We'll do our best to answer those questions while we're broadcasting tonight. If we don't, we'll come back to you at some point in the evening, or we'll email you and make sure that we get back to it. We answer every single question. Okay. We're also going to use some questions and polls tonight. So we'll use this opportunity to do the first one. And if you can pop that onto the screen now. And this is just really so that we understand our audience out there who have registered. How many of you have used an unloader before? Do you use it a lot? Is it something that you're using frequently, or have you never used one? And if you can just click on that, and then we should all be able to see the live feedback from that one. So we can close that poll now. And then on the screen, it will pop up. So 40% have used many, which is great. You guys are going to learn about the updates and how we've made it easier to use, how we've made the Unloader X better in terms of aesthetics. But then there's also a few of you that have never used an unloader before. So we'll make sure that Giles goes through the indications so you know where it needs to be used. And then we'll go through the fitting of them. We are recording this, so for anybody who's registered that can't be here tonight, they'll still be able to experience it. It just won't be live. And also we will upload the recording onto our website. So if you just Google Össur webinars, there's a whole back catalogue on there, and you'll be able to view any of the historical webinars we've done, and we'll be able to view this one. And then finally, thirdly, e-certificates. If you do want any of those, we will be sending those through. We'll endeavour to do those this week for anyone that's attended for the full webinar. And then finally, as a bit of fun, hashtag Össur webinars. If you like social media, go for it. If you don't, no worries. I don't mind a bit of a selfie on Instagram. But put a picture of yourselves where you're watching this webinar, whether it's at home in your slippers or whether you're at a Starbucks on a motorway somewhere. And then we can build a little bit of an image gallery on there, and that could just, it's there as a bit of fun. Okay, so a little bit about Össur before we get too much into the education, the product. We're actually, originally we're a prosthetic company, and 52% of our business is actually focused on the prosthetic side, and 48% in bracing and supports. I work on the bracing and support side, so I'd like to see that number rise a little bit, but still it's a really nice even spread of the business across the world. And then in terms of our locations, we're streaming this from Manchester, but our head office and where we originated is in Iceland on this volcanic rock in the North Atlantic. And then we span the whole globe. So we have big offices in the Foothill Ranch in California, and then we've also got coverage over in APAC as well. So a global company, and it's growing all the time. So in terms of our ambassadors and our sports people, our Paralympians are a big part of our business. And here's our medal tally from 2016 in Rio. So it's a pretty good medal tally. And we're hoping that in 2020 in Tokyo, it's going to be similar to this, if not a little bit better. Okay, and here are some of our ambassadors that we've got on the wall. So a lot of them wearing our cheetah blades. Richard Whitehead here, just on the side there. When I first joined Össur 6 years ago, he was running John O'Groats to Land's End, and we were supporting him on the road. So he's a great ambassador of ours. So I'm going to take this opportunity to pass the baton on to Giles, and he's going to take on the presentation from here. Thank you.
Hello. I'm just going to go through a presentation, just talking you through the Unloader 1X, some of the differences, although some of you are familiar with the older version, the Unloader 1 Smart Dosing, but we're just going to talk you through some of the differences, why we went through this sort of phase of developing this brace over the last 4 years. Before we do that, it's important to say that it uses a 3-point pressure system in order to apply the unloading force. So you can see we use these dynamic force straps. In this case, always the hinge goes on the affected side. And in this case, we're taking that pressure away from that medial compartment. But it started in 1986 with the original prototype, quite a bit different from perhaps what you've seen before, and then progressed through to 2006, a little bit more familiar to some of you, with the original unloader with ratchets. We later included smart dosing and BOA dials, and then now we come to, it was just this, the Unloader 1X was just released very late on in 2019. So you'll start to see the Unloader 1X a little bit more as we progress. First of all, with indications. Effectively, the unloader is designed for moderate to severe unicompartmental osteoarthritis, but any condition that requires unicompartmental unloading, whether that's degenerative meniscal tears, articular cartilage repair, avascular necrosis, or even tibial plateau fractures. Those are the kinds of conditions that you can use them for. So I just wanted to quickly sort of do another quick poll to find out your experiences of what types of indications that these have been used for. It's interesting from the last session as well. So whether that's unicompartmental OA, avascular necrosis, tibial plateau fractures, pre-high tibial osteotomies, pre-unicompartmental arthroplasty, and or perhaps degenerative meniscus. So any of those that you have experience on, just give them a click, and then we can then go through the results. So give it another few seconds. And then we'll just close that and then pop the results up. So you should be able to see those on your screen in a second. So far and away, 95% have seen unicompartmental osteoarthritis. Quite a high proportion, about a third for both high tibial osteotomy and then degenerative meniscus. We also saw that reflected in the previous session as well. So that's really good to see. If we progress from there, why did we do this? Why did we improve on the original Unloader 1 Smart Dosing? Which to use the existing technology, use the dynamic force straps and the 3-point leverage system, and also to improve the shell shape adaptability, so allowing it to fit and conform to the anatomy a little bit better than perhaps it might have done in the past. So really, we can narrow these down into 3 separate categories. We wanted to improve the ease of use, we wanted to improve the comfort, but also the aesthetics as well. So going through these, for starting first of all with intuitive donning. So there's a variety of different features that we've made to improve this. So one big change is the positioning guide. So if we actually look on this brace here, can you see that there's an Össur logo in this position? And this is actually designed to fit, designed to sit at the top of the patella. So a little bit higher than perhaps you would have you've been used to before with the original Unloader Smart Dosing. That logo level with the top of the patella. It's also important to say that the hinge sits a little further back as well. So the front of the hinge should sit at the midline of the knee, as you can see with that one there. Also throughout the brace, whether it's on the buckles, the BOAs, or the smart dosing dials, or indeed the hinge, you've got these yellow sort of colour points. And those are really the areas that the patient is designed to touch and be aware of. Moving on, the whole brace is completely machine washable. So it comes with this bag that you can see on this screen with the washing instructions at the top. You can basically, as long as you've got all the Velcro straps fastened securely so they're not sticking and attaching to anything they shouldn't, you can place the whole thing in the washing machine very simply, and it just means the patient can keep their brace clean. Lots of patients are intending to use these for work or intending to use them for activity, so they can get quite sweaty, and it's a very quick and accessible way for them to do that. From a clinical perspective, you've probably got lots of patients that have been using these braces for long periods of time. So not only is there a whole wide range of different parts and accessories to go with these, we've also got a part guide, so we can actually go through those and you can very quickly figure out what parts need to be replaced. And effectively, even down to the boas, everything can be replaced and adjusted, so they're interchangeable sort of parts for that. We're also thinking about the types of patients that we're fitting with these braces. So often, if they've got unicompartmental OA, they may have associated hand dexterity problems, for example. So we can actually use this sundial attachment. It actually pops off just for when you're actually fastening the brace. But this actually means that it gives you a bit more leverage, and it's much easier to adjust those boa dials if you've got poor dexterity, for example. Also, if you're struggling with undoing the quick fit buckles, where normally you're placing a finger underneath there, can you see on this we can actually attach a little strap similar to a finger loop, similar to what you've got on rucksacks, for example, and it means that you can actually undo those quick fit buckles very quickly and very simply. Also, from a clinical point of view, we're also very aware that often the stockroom is relatively small. Equally, the amount of stock that your managers are wanting for you to keep is always, designed to be as minimal as possible. So not only are the boxes 25% smaller in terms of the standard box, 50% smaller in terms of the extra large, you also need potentially less braces in order to fit those patients. So with a small brace and a large brace, you can actually accommodate 95% of the patient population in that leg and compartment. So it very much means you've got minimal stock requirements in comparison to the original. From a comfort point of view, we wanted to really make sure that the brace stays in position. So we actually very much re-engineered the position of this calf strap. So where historically this would be a little bit more horizontal, one of the major changes, as you can see on this one, is that the calf strap actually comes up and over the top of the belly of the gastroc there. So it just really means that it's already sort of pre-set up to make sure that it stays directly in position. And that's an important learning point for you, to make sure that you explain that to the patient, make sure that's sat nice and high, and then the brace will stay in position well. We've also changed the rigidity within which the shells will actually conform. So it's a little bit more flexibility, and it means it can conform to different anatomies dependent on your need. From a pressure point of view, in terms of how the shell and the hinge interact, these are constructed in a very different way. So with the original version, these are using Chicago screws, and it was screwed through like that. But with the new one, it's actually completely overmolded, which gives us the benefit that we haven't actually got any prominences on the inner side of the brace. You'll also notice that the Velcro is actually included in the injection molding as well. So it just means that the hook Velcro can't detach. The quick fit buckles themselves, as you actually adjust these, it will actually, it's a dual action, so it adjusts both the calf strap and the dynamic force strap, but it has a strap over mold, which basically means, as you look in this video, there's a degree of adjustability and flex built into that, and that helps in the transition between no unloading, when the patient's beyond 20 to 25 degrees flexed, to full extension. It smooths the transition between no unloading into full unloading as we go into full extension. We've improved the bulk, or reduced the bulk, in the popliteal region, but I'll show you that on Pete in a second. And very simply, we've reduced the weight of the brace itself. So there's a 100-gram weight reduction in comparison to our older brace. There are also lots of different skin protection options. So where this is different liners, a sleeve to go underneath the brace, for example, there's lots of different options, and I'll show you a good selection of those in a minute. Moving on to aesthetics, we really wanted to improve the way the brace looks and feels. So the low profile design really contributes to it fitting underneath clothing and that sort of thing. But what we didn't want to do is to compromise the unloading. So you can see here in black, these are the new shells from the Unloader 1X. Then the colored ones underneath are the original unloader frames. So what you can see is that the surface area to provide the unloading is exactly the same as is the geometry of the dynamic force strap. So it means that all of the previous research, as the unloader is the most researched brace within the field of osteoarthritis, all of the research is equally valid for this new brace as it is for the original. We've also gone slightly differently, a different type of grey, less battleship grey as we call it in the UK, and made some aesthetic changes to the hinge, for example, just to make it a little bit more pleasing to the eye. So what I'm going to do now is just go over to an unboxing. I'm just going to show you exactly what's included in the box and how you would expect it to arrive. So I'm just going to go over here. So before we start, we're just going to show you the box itself. Most important thing from a sizing perspective, we're sizing these and measuring these with a circumferential measure, 15 centimeters below mid-patella, and this gives you the size. Obviously, what we also need to know is what leg. So in this case, it's a right medial, and this one's a medium. The other thing to mention is all the lot number is written in here, so it's really useful. You can see that there's 4 of these stickers on here. If you take one of those off and then add it to the patient's notes, if there's ever any issues and we need that lot number, very quickly and very simply, we can identify exactly what brace, what date of manufacture, and it just means it's very useful. So that's always a good tip for us to have. So when we come to open it, I have taken it out of the plastic bag, but otherwise this is exactly as it would come out of the packaging. So I'm just going to move that to one side, take the brace out here, and you can see that first of all, we've got the clinician's instructions for use, so a very detailed report in all languages in terms of setting those up, so that's more aimed at you. The second thing is actually the patient user guide, so a pictorial guide that goes through patient application in terms of how to put it on, care instructions on the right, and then as we turn it over, how to remove it in the center, but then also the wearing in procedure. So it's very important with any orthosis to build up the amount of time that you wear it, gradually increase that, and it gives you a little bit of guidance from there. So the next thing is the washing bag, and you can see here that the washing instructions are on the top left-hand side. This is just a zip pocket. We can open this up and place the whole brace in there, zip it back up, and then place it into the washing on your normal cycle, but according to the instructions. Okay, so going to the brace itself, again, as I mentioned before, these have yellow touch points throughout, just in terms of where the patient is interacting with the brace. As before, these also have the yellow at the top, both on the liner and also on the buckles as well. And you can see that as standard, it comes with Sensil on the calf section and then doeskin on the thigh, just so that means you're anchoring that in position. But you do have alternatives, which we'll go through in a second. Going back to the front, you can see that the straps are actually now adjusted anteriorly. So where previously we'd be reaching around the back of the patient or even getting the patient to stand up and look at the back of the brace, these are very easily and quickly adjusted from the front. So it does make it a lot easier for the patient patient and clinician to set this up. And I'll just show you the dual action of these buckles. So as we're closing it, you can see that we're actually fastening this calf section as well as the dynamic force strap. So originally, it was mainly the calf section that we're adjusting. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this brace over and actually fit this on Pete. So I'm just going to pop over now. You can see we've got Pete over there in his shorts, and then we're just going to go through a standard fitting. So where historically we would have started with the leg in full extension, with this we're actually starting in a little bit of flexion, and then what we're also doing is making sure that we've again got that positioning correct. So looking at the logo here, level with the top of the patella. Historically, we would have had this slightly lower, level with mid patella, but with the new version, you can see we've got this here, level with the top of the patella, halfway between the front and the back of the knee there. So we've got that in position. We then would fasten the blue buckle, bring that through onto the blue touch point, and then fasten that round and clip that into position. So you can see we've got that position really well like that. We then bring in the top section up, fastening that into position and clipping that there. And then if Pete brings his leg round, what we can actually do is anteriorly just adjust these straps in order to bring this into, get the tension correct. So another thing to notice, the bottom strap for the dynamic force strap actually has a yellow seam on here in line with the yellow buckle, and the top one, I don't know if you can see that, is also blue as well, so it helps to identify whenever you're replacing the straps, you've got that set up like that. So this is just a trial fit, so what I'm just doing is fastening the straps in position, not actually trimming those as yet, but you can see it's very easy to quickly adjust them. And it's actually better to fold these under like that, bring that into position, and then fasten that like that. I'm just going to go a touch tighter on the top one. Dead simple. We can make these adjustments as we go, fasten it into position. Nice low profile fit before we've even adjusted these. So again, with the knee bent, we're actually beginning to tighten these smart dosing dials. And whenever we check the setup of these, we always check them with the patient's leg in full extension. So if you extend your leg for me, Pete, you can see we've got these about right. The bottom section's about right. I could go a little bit tighter on the top one. It's important to bear in mind with the skin condition of your patient, if their skin condition is a little bit poor or their muscle bulk is a little bit less than perhaps Pete's is, you wouldn't have the strap tension quite as high. So just bear in mind the conditions of the patient. So straighten again, and you can see that we've got that strap tension about correct. Okay, again, level with the top of the patella. Sometimes as you first adjust it, you may need to just gently push that back to make sure it stays in position. Can you stand up for me, Pete? And then if you just spin round, what we can actually do is just show that it's really important that we've got this calf strap going up and over the gastroc to make sure it's sat correctly, so a little bit higher than perhaps you might be used to. And we can also adjust this popliteal pad. So I'm just going to ask Pete to flex a little bit to take a little bit of pressure off there. But what I can actually do is shift that down very quickly and simply, where previously we'd have to have taken that off. So we can make that adjustment in order to get it in the correct position. Okay, so effectively, if you face the front again, Pete, that represents a normal fitting in a normal patient group. But what we can actually do is we can actually use different accessories dependent on what we need, whether we're presenting a little bit of slippage perhaps, where we'd always check the calf section first of all, make sure we haven't got it too tight on the thigh. We can change a few different things according to whatever we need. So I'm just going to go back to the table now, and then we'll actually show you some of those accessories so that we can set it up from there. So I've got a short brace here first of all, so you can see that this is a little bit shorter in terms of length in comparison to the original, the normal brace that Pete has. The main difference is actually in the hinge here. This is a little bit shorter, and this is designed for patients of 5'4" or less, or 165 centimeters. And we've got a few of the different accessories set up on this brace first of all. So starting with the liners, if I actually turn this over, undo these buckles and then flip this over, you can see that this has the original smart dosing, Sensil calf liner on here, and we can actually take this out and then replace this with the alternative to a similar suspension method, but this is called the ActiGrip liner. So similar sort of level of grip to the smart dosing, the Sensil version, but it just means you've got an alternative if your patient needs that. Perhaps they might prefer a different liner, so you have that option. There's also a doe-skin version as well if you need to change that to something similar to the thigh section, but it's important if you do that, you have to add a secondary form of suspension, and this is where this Sensil pad comes in as well. So what we can actually do is add this onto the calf strap. So if I just bring this round, I'm going to flip this over. What we can actually do is attach an extra Sensil pad onto that strap there, and in order to anchor it firmly over the calf. So that's an optional addition that you can do should the patient have any suspension problems. Looking more specifically at the thigh, this actually has an extra thigh liner on it. So if I show you the original thigh liner, which is here, there's actually a thigh extension, this one here, that allows you to increase the size of the thigh section. This is particularly useful for patients, larger patients perhaps, patients with quite a lot of soft tissue, and this not only increases the size of the shell, but it increases the degree of flexibility, the flex edge that works around the whole of the brace, and you can see it's really sleek fitting. So take the original liner off and slide it in there. I took the approach of preparing this one, so it was good to go for this webinar, but it's pretty easy to attach it on there. From there onto the dexterity accessories. So we have the sundial here, and this just actually pops over this smart dosing dial, clips into position, and you can see that it's very easy to actually adjust that. We've got a lot more leverage, and it just means that the patient can adjust those very easily either way. So we've got that if we need to. Very easily comes back off. And then on this top one, I've already added a finger loop, as you can see here, but I'll show you it on the bottom one. And all we're doing is we're placing this through this top section. It's hard to do with one hand because I'm holding the brace too. Slide that through, and you can see that we've very simply attached that one on there. So when the patient comes to undo it, it's dead simple. We've got that fastened and in position. Okay, so we've gone through all the different accessories, when we would use them. What I'm going to do now is pass over to Pete, and he's going to talk about some of the features from a patient's perspective and also how you're taking the brace off.
Okay, great. Thank you, Giles, for running through all of that. I hope you found that interesting and useful. So I want to go through some of the features where I think from a patient's point of view, they're really going to benefit from it, and also some of my favorite updates against the Unloader X. So first of all, it's really low profile compared to our previous brace, and that's really important because patients want these to look good, and often they're wearing them under tight-fitting jeans or slim chinos, which is kind of the fashion at the minute. And by reducing that bulk, it makes it a lot more user-friendly and aesthetically pleasing for those patients. But when we asked the engineer who spent the last 4 years of developing this product, what he was most proud of, it was actually just the clips. So in the past, with our previous version, we would have to take the tension out of the straps to take this off. And we would then, on both straps, and then we would have to unclip these. But now, because we have the dual tension, the dual action clips, all we have to do, we can leave the tension on here. So whatever you as a clinician has set that up as, it can be left for the patient. And we can don and doff it just by simply undoing those, and it takes all of the tension out of the brace. And it's the same for when we're popping it back on. We're slightly bending our leg. We're making sure that the hinge is in the right position. But we can actually apply pressure to any aspect of that clip, and it will close. And I don't know if you can hear that, but it gives us a really loud clicking noise, which is very important because we need to know, and patients need to know that they're clipped in place. And then another area that's really been improved is actually the straps themselves, which are the Dfs straps. We have a lot of patients who use these who are very active, They're wanting to make their legs stronger. They're wanting to keep doing the sports that they're doing. They're wanting to keep doing the jobs that they're doing. And if you think about a patient group that might use this a lot, well, it could be a plumber or an electrician who can't afford to have surgery, and we're trying to conservatively manage them. Well, they spend a lot of time on their knees, and these straps around the back of the knee are so comfortable now in this new brace that really, even in this position, I can't really feel the straps digging in or anything like that. So in terms of ease of use and comfort, we've really made that better for patients. But what I want to stress as a clinician, when you're fitting these, is that you need to really make sure that the patients know the landmarks that they're lining up, and they know how to fit it. So make sure that they demonstrate being able to fit this correctly, really focusing on that hinge position and getting that Össur logo with the top of patella. And also, if any of you guys out there get the opportunity to try one of these on, if any of either myself or any of the colleagues come out, please try these on against your leg, and it will and you'll feel how much better it feels. Okay, so they're my favorite features: the new straps, the updates, and the clips. Fantastic. So we're going to move back to the final screen with Giles, and we've got one final poll that we want to ask. So as a clinician, of the features that Giles and I have gone through there, which do you think is going to best improve your clinical practice, or you're going to really find benefits from in your clinical practice? So we have a number on there. Click a couple if you want, and then we'll push on for the answers. I think ease of fit was a winner in the last webinar, so we'll close that down. Thank you. And yeah, absolutely. Ease of fit is something that we've really focused on, and making it as easy to fit for the clinician as well as the patient. And fantastic. So thank you for joining us tonight. I hope you found that useful. Any questions, please ask, and get in touch. And hopefully we'll see you back for future webinars. Cheers.